I was standing on a stage in front of 3,000 people when I saw my parents in the back row. They hadn't spoken to me in 12 years. They'd told me I was dead to them the day I became a teacher. But now they were here, watching the governor of our state place a medal around my neck and announce that I'd just been named National Teacher of the Year. And I realized they had no idea I'd invited them. My name is Sarah and I'm 36 years old. I teach 11th grade English at Lincoln High School in a working-class neighborhood where most of my students are the first in their families to graduate. My parents are Dr. Richard Chen and Dr. Margaret Chen. Both surgeons. Both Ivy League graduates. Both absolutely convinced that anything less than a medical degree was failure. When I was 17, they sat me down and told me I had two options: become a doctor, or become nothing. I told them I wanted to teach. They told me I was throwing my life away. I told them teaching mattered. They told me I was no longer their daughter. That was 12 years ago. I haven't heard from them since. Until the day the governor's office sent them an invitation to watch me receive the highest teaching honor in the country. The first time my parents made their expectations clear, I was 14 years old. We were at a family dinner, and my cousin Jessica had just announced she'd been accepted to nursing school. My father put down his fork and said, "Nursing is a fine profession for people who couldn't make it through medical school." Jessica started crying. My mother didn't say anything. She just nodded. That night, I asked my mom if she thought teaching was a good career. She said, "Teaching is what people do when they don't have ambition." I didn't forget that. The second time I was a junior in high school. I'd been accepted into a summer program at Stanford for students interested in education policy. I was so excited. I brought the acceptance letter home and showed my parents at dinner. My father read it and handed it back. "You're not going," he said. I asked why. He said, "Because I'm not paying for you to waste your time preparing for a $45,000 a year job." I told him the program was free. He said, "Then you'll have plenty of time to study for the MC8. I went to my room and cried for 3 hours. The third time, I was 18. It was the fall of my senior year, and I'd just been accepted early decision to Columbia's Teachers College. Full scholarship. I'd worked for 2 years to get that acceptance. I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would be proud. I was wrong. I told them at breakfast. My mother looked at my father. My father looked at me. He said, "If you go to that school, you are not our daughter anymore." I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. My mother added, "We didn't sacrifice everything to raise a teacher." I asked her what that meant. She said, "It means you're choosing poverty and mediocrity over everything we've built for you. If you make that choice, we will not support you, financially or emotionally." I was 18 years old, I had no savings. No job, no plan, but I knew if I didn't go to Columbia I'd regret it for the rest of my life. So I went. The day I moved into my dorm at Columbia my parents didn't help. They didn't call, they didn't text. I waited 3 days, thinking maybe they'd change their minds. On the 4th day I called home. My father answered. I said, "Dad, I just wanted to let you know I'm okay." He said, "I don't have a daughter." And he hung up. I called my mother. She didn't answer. I texted her. She blocked me. I reached out to my extended family. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins. They all told me the same thing my parents had told everyone: I was dead to them, and if anyone stayed in contact with me, they'd be cut off too. I was 18 years old, completely alone, living in a city where I knew no one, paying for school with loans and 2 part-time jobs. And I had no family. 4 years later, I graduated summa cum laude. I sent my parents an invitation to my graduation. It came back unopened. I got my first teaching job at a Title I school in the Bronx. The pay was $38,000 a year. I was working 70-hour weeks buying school supplies out of my own pocket, staying late to tutor students who had no one else. I loved it. But I was broke. I was exhausted. And I was alone. 6 years into teaching I got engaged. His name was Michael, and he was a social worker. I sent my parents a wedding invitation. It came back unopened. We got married in a small ceremony with 12 people. My mother-in-law walked me down the aisle. I cried the entire time. Not because I was happy. Because I kept thinking about how my parents should have been there. And they'd chosen not to be. Then, 2 years ago something shifted. I'd been teaching for 10 years at that point. I'd built a program at Lincoln High that helped first-generation students get into college. Our college acceptance rate went from 42% to 96% in 5 years. The local news ran a story about it. Then the state education board noticed. They nominated me for the State Teacher of the Year award. I didn't think I'd win. But I did. The ceremony was small. I gave a short speech. I thanked my students. I thanked my husband. I didn't mention my parents. A week later, I got a call from the governor's office. They told me I'd been selected as one of 5 finalists for the National Teacher of the Year award. The ceremony would be in Washington, D.C. It would be televised. The president would be there. And I could invite up to 10 guests. I thought about who to invite. My husband, obviously. My mother-in-law, a few close friends, and then I did something I didn't fully understand at the time. I sent 2 invitations to my parents' address. I didn't include a note. I didn't call. I just sent the invitations. Formal, official, with the governor's seal on them. I had no idea if they'd come. Part of me didn't want them to, but part of me did. 3 months later I won National Teacher of the Year. Out of 3.7 million teachers in the country, they chose me. The ceremony was scheduled for a Saturday in May. I flew to DC with my husband. I didn't tell anyone I'd invited my parents. I didn't even know if they'd received the invitations. The ceremony was at the Kennedy Center. 3,000 people. Cameras everywhere. I was backstage, waiting for my name to be called, when one of the governor's aides came up to me. She said, "There are 2 people here who say they're your parents. They're asking to see you before the ceremony." My stomach dropped. I said, "Tell them I'm busy." She nodded and left. 20 minutes later, I walked on stage. The governor gave a speech about my work, about the students I'd taught, about the program I'd built, about how I'd changed lives. Then he called my name. I walked to the center of the stage. He placed a medal around my neck. The audience stood and applauded. And that's when I saw them, my parents, in the back row standing, clapping, crying. After the ceremony there was a reception. I was talking to the Secretary of Education when my mother approached. She said, "Sarah, we need to talk." I looked at her. 12 years. 12 years of silence. And now she wanted to talk. I excused myself from the conversation and walked with my parents to a quiet corner. My father spoke first. "We're so proud of you." I didn't say anything. My mother tried next. "We had no idea you'd accomplished so much." I still didn't say anything. My father continued. "We made a mistake. We should have supported you." That's when I finally spoke. I said, "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to cut me out of your lives because I didn't become what you wanted me to be. And now, 12 years later, you're here because I won an award. Not because you love me, not because you're sorry, but because I'm finally successful enough to meet your standards." My mother started crying. "That's not fair, Sarah. We've always loved you." I looked at her. "You told me I was dead to you. You returned my graduation invitation unopened. You didn't come to my wedding. You've had 12 years to reach out, and you didn't. Not once. But now that I'm standing on a stage with the governor and the president, now you want to be my parents again." My father tried to defend himself. "We thought you'd come to your senses. We thought if we gave you space, you'd realize teaching wasn't enough." I shook my head. Teaching is everything. It's the reason I get up every morning. It's the reason 367 students have gone to college who wouldn't have otherwise. It's the reason I'm standing here with this medal. And you couldn't see that because you were too busy being ashamed of me. My mother reached for my hand. I pulled away. "Sarah, please. We want to make this right." I looked at both of them. "You can't make this right. You can't erase 12 years of silence. You can't take back the fact that you told me I was worthless because I chose to teach. You can't undo the damage you did." My father's voice broke. "We're your parents." I nodded. "You are. And that's why it hurts so much. Because parents are supposed to love their children no matter what. But you didn't. You loved your idea of who I should be. And when I didn't become that person, you threw me away." The reception was ending. People were starting to leave. My husband came over and put his hand on my shoulder. I turned to my parents one last time. "I'm glad you came. I'm glad you saw what I've built. But I don't want you in my life. Not now. Not after everything." My mother started sobbing. My father just stood there silent. I walked away. That was 2 years ago. My parents have tried to contact me since then. Letters, emails, phone calls. I don't respond. Not because I'm angry, but because I've built a life without them. A life I'm proud of. A life that matters. I teach. I mentor. I change lives. And I do it without needing their approval. Last month, one of my former students graduated from medical school. She sent me a photo of herself in her white coat with a note that said, "I wouldn't be here without you, Miss Chen. You were the first person who believed in me." I cried when I read it. Not because I was sad, but because I realized something. My parents spent 12 years ashamed of me for teaching. But teaching is the reason I'm here. It's the reason I matter. It's the reason I wake up every day with purpose. And no medal, no award, no recognition will ever mean as much as that note from my student. Because that's what teaching is. It's not about the money. It's not about the prestige. It's about showing up for people who have no one else. And my parents will never understand that, but I do, and that's enough.